I like General Mkhwanazi because he doesn't speak to please people. Maybe one day he might say something that I disagree with, but at least I can trust that he probably believes in what he'll be saying. Here he is, making the communists in this country lose their minds.
We are coming from 25,000 police officers in KZN to 19,000. But the population is growing, and we are going down more. Thanks to who? The unions. The labor people who said we want salaries for our employees. So the more government employment and increase salaries is the lesser they employ. So the lesser they employ, the more crime. So we need to really interrogate and ask these things. Prima, you said this country is going down in front of our eyes. The reality is we've got too many things that are wrong in our country that contribute. Labor laws are one of those. I can tell you that. We moved to 25,000 employees. It was paying me to look at the NUMSA's Secretary General yesterday talking about the closure of Rivonia. So when you have companies that are starting to shut down, then you need to ask yourself, then many of them shutting down in the country, the higher the salary we need, the lesser the employment. And that's a reality. We can't avoid it, but it's a fact. We must face it, it is there.
So, who do you think would say that he's lying? No matter how you feel about what KZN Police Commissioner Mkhwanazi said in that clip, it is a fact that unions are usually a serious problem for employers. So your emotions have nothing to do with this. Facts first, cry later. For example,
the South African Post Office has warned that the impact of yet another strike by its workers will be extremely damaging. This comes after the Communication Workers Union confirmed that its members will engage on a protected industrial action that's today and tomorrow, demanding salary increases that have not been forthcoming for the past 2 years. So when you look at the financial health of the South African Post Office, and obviously you know what they're going through right now, we all as South Africans know. I mean, if we just look at their financial statements I think it was the last financial year, 1.5 billion rand loss. This is a lot of money that has been lost by the Post Office, and there's from the new CEO, they're begging for money in every direction that he can to try and save the Post Office and try and bring it back up onto its feet, and saying that a strike like this could again hamper getting funds, if not cripple the Post Office. Does this not worry you at all?
Well, firstly, let us clarify that the public protector's report vindicated us from being the ones that have been blamed for the financial woes of South African Post Office. Actual corruption was the main source to cripple Post Office to this stage now, where it's in paralysis. But having said that, it is not correct to say that South African Post Office has no money. Yes, it might have no money, but it's a state-owned entity. And because of the lack of political will by the South African government, we don't see the treasury coming forth to bail out the South African Post Office. Those are mere things that we need to look into and to respond to. So South African Post Office have been given bank guarantees by the South African government. That also does not help because it just put South African Post Office deep into the crisis of being in the debts and so on and so on.
Here is another example.
When you look at the financial situation, not only that government finds itself in, that the world finds itself in, it's not a normal situation. And I don't think there are many people at this time that are getting salary increases, that are struggling to find jobs at a time like this. Don't you think that as an entity, we should be working together to keep these jobs as opposed to try and ask for wage increases, cripple organizations? Don't you think we should be trying to turn it around together as one entity? You have a new CEO. We've tried to get rid of all the corrupt individuals that have been pulling the Post Office down for all of these years. Yes, you've been vindicated, and that's why you're still in your positions. But why try and make the situation worse?
Well, let's just clarify this again. Every year, South African government spend over 20 billion rands on private sector, on postal and courier national and international, without using South African Post Office. Two, we don't see any political will in local, provincial and national government to utilize South African Post Office as their sole institution to provide those particular services. Lastly, we have seen the announcement by the Department of Home Affairs wanting to use the three giants banks, which is Standard Bank, FNB and NEDBANK, to provide a facility of ID smart cards. And that in itself, it shows that there's a lack of a will to rescue post office, because firstly, government should lead by example before the private sector come into place. So it can't be said that the money is not there, but the money is there, spent wrongly into a private sector, leaving the parastatal to collapses.
And yet another example.
Well, there is a threat. I mean, there has been a threat. There was a threat from during budgets and in the State of the Nation address that those private entity or those entities that are not performing, those public-owned entities, will be privatized. There is a threat out there. So again, I ask you, don't you think it's better to work as a team to ensure that that doesn't happen for the Post Office and that it actually is one of those thriving public entities that we can look at and say, gosh, look, they did it, why can't we do it?
Well, from 2014, workers have been working tirelessly. And on a weekly basis, there have been reports on the newspapers that there is a threat that post office can be shut down. And simply because of the things that we are raising. So we've been working for the past 3 years without any strike, without any hindrance. But there's been a consistent threat that South African Post Office will be closed down. Why? Because there's a consistent of these bank guarantees that are given by the state that are deepening Post Office into a crisis. But more so,
Unions demanding that they should get what they want every time, regardless of the consequences of meeting those demands. I recently watched a video that perfectly displays how in meeting the demands of unions, many employees end up suffering. Take a look at this.
We must rethink everything we're doing. We must reinvent and innovate. And so we are doing outsourcing and more of it. And why? Because we think it'll be less expensive to the community. And the reason is when we hire employees, we're required to have a guaranteed pension for them, and we can't afford that for the future. I have to go back to work right now.
You heard that. Instead of working and getting some salary, even if it excluded a pension fund, the unions insisted on a guaranteed pension fund. The consequences?
Like the trash collection that has always been in private hands, the mayor has handed over the management of the city's largest hospital, the public swimming pools, and the park maintenance to private enterprises. It's easy. Take the municipal gardeners, for example. A dozen were fired and replaced by the employees of a private company. These private sector services do cost the city 20% less.
Now, which employee has benefited there? Which citizen has won here? Guys, unions and their demands are very dangerous to employment rates, and we need all citizens to wake up and realize this fact. The fact that unions are in our government is a big part of our problem. Our population grows, but the number of police officials does not. Instead of facing the facts, COSATU was quick to start complaining.
So, COSATU and, of course, other unions now are up in arms. And they are saying that Mkhwanazi shouldn't have, in fact, entered that fray. In fact, they released a statement saying that he must not scapegoat organized labor for a crisis that is rooted in government policies and structural flaws inherited from the apartheid.
Imagine that. COSATU and the other unions want to make it seem like they really have nothing to do with this. They want to blame apartheid on government policies. Guys, the policies that we have in our government are policies that were created with the input of unions like COSATU. Many ANC members are actually COSATU members. Let's not forget that the ANC, COSATU and SACP are the Tripartite Alliance. It was founded on the shared commitment to the National Democratic Revolution. That alliance has lasted over 3 decades. COSATU secured votes for the ANC. They supported the ANC no matter what. The ANC put laws in place that allowed unions like COSATU to hold companies and the government to ransom without the government doing anything to keep the unions in check. They've been trashing cities, blocking roads, interrupting economic growth with no one doing anything about it. Many ministers have come from COSATU. So when COSATU complains about the government policies, who are they complaining against exactly? Themselves. For example, a person like Ibrahim Patel became Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition from 2019 to 2024. Before that, he was Minister of Economic Development from 2009 to 2019. What trade, industry and competition do you expect from a person who was a Union Secretary General for 16 years? What economic development will come from a person whose career came through an organization like COSATU? COSATU is reported to have asked Zuma to appoint him to be a minister to increase the union's representation in government, and Zuma did it. COSATU has been with the government. COSATU has no right to blame the government led by the ANC because they are that ANC. Instead of reflecting and admitting that their policies are not benefiting South Africa 31 years since joining government, COSATU wants to blame apartheid. In 1994, a child was born in a new South Africa. That child now has children of their own. That child should have a job or should be able to start a company, but you want to tell that 31-year-old child that the difficulties of apartheid are the ones keeping him or her down today. No sane person can condone apartheid or deny how horrible it was, but to blame it for every single problem in the lives of non-white South Africans is stretching it. Apartheid. That's your excuse. Our current problems are due to who has been in charge now and in recent times. Mkhwanazi is right. The unions are a problem in this country. No matter what lies they tell their members, unions are there to benefit the unions. Some unions demand that there should be salary increases because the fees that they collect from their members also increase if the salary increases. But they forget to ask one important question. If there's no salary for those members due to job losses, where will the union get the money to fund their ever-increasing costs? Often we hear about a blessing in disguise, but when it comes to unions, they are a curse in disguise, appearing to be beneficial to the people, all while destroying things for the same people and more people. Now, listen to one of COSATU's leaders try to explain away this issue.
So we think he's flawed for several reasons. Basically, it's tantamount to blaming a patient at a hospital for getting cancer or diabetes, or as blaming a victim of crime for being robbed by criminals. It makes no sense to blame workers for a very deep socio-economic crisis.
How? How is it similar to blaming victims? Who said Mkhwanazi is blaming workers? Mkhwanazi blamed you, the unions. Unions are not the workers. Unions claim to represent workers, even when really they are hurting workers and workers' economic prospects long term. He thinks he's very, very clever and all South Africans are very dumb. Right from the get-go, he tries to trick you into thinking that the unions are the workers. Unions are unions and they do what benefits unions. Blaming unions does not equal blaming the workers. They may try to make it seem like they're doing it for you as a worker, but always remember that they benefit from the fees that they collect from you as a worker. They're not doing anything for free. They constantly complain about capitalism, but here they are collecting capital from you. The more they can collect from you and your employer, the more they're happy to demand more. Now listen to this fool blame apartheid and the government that COSATU put in power through their support.
We're in a crisis because of deep structural flaws we've inherited from the party regime. We're in a crisis because Eskom was run into the ground during the decade of state capture and corruption, where electricity became unreliable, unaffordable. We're in a crisis because Transnet struggles to move our mining, our manufacturing, our agricultural goods to the markets, where huge amounts of jobs are created. We're in a crisis because Metro Rail has collapsed during COVID-19 and it transports workers to the workplace in our cities. Similarly with municipalities. And you would think that a general of the police of his seniority would also appreciate we're in a crisis because of high levels of crime and corruption. But if his economic argument, and we're not aware that he's got a background in economics, but if his economic argument is to pay workers peanuts, and that's the way to grow the economy, then the party regime would have created a very prosperous society. but it makes no sense to pay people peanuts because, number one, you'll struggle to find workers being productive if they must walk 2 hours each way to get to and from work every day. They'll be exhausted. Similarly, if workers can't afford to buy the food or medication needed to be healthy, they're not going to be productive. And we're not sure how our businesses who produce shoes, clothes, food, furniture, cars, appliances, or hotels, restaurants are going to be profitable if workers, who are the majority of consumers, can't afford to buy the goods. So it's a fallacious argument with the general.
Imagine that. He blames state capture, a result of the ANC, which COSATU is a huge supporter of. So basically, he should be blaming COSATU too, shouldn't he? He blames corruption, which is hugely an ANC issue. The same ANC which COSATU is a huge supporter of.
We are not dumping anyone. COSATU 14th National Congress did not make any resolution on not supporting the ANC. In the CEC, we spoke about us preparing for the 2024 elections in support of the ANC for its total victory. The discussion regarding the party, you would know that the party had its augmented central committee. It's an internal discussion that is also ensued internally in the party, but we remain in the alliance.
At the same time, the Federation says government needs to put the interests of the people first.
So again, COSATU should be to blame too, Mos. He blames many things which are caused by the ANC, which his union supports, and still doesn't seem to see the link.
The Federation is deeply worried that last year's momentum in reducing the unemployment may be lost with the current rampant level of load shedding suffocating the economy. The government's failure to fix load shedding and drive economy recovery has reached a crisis level. We reiterate our calls for an activist government.
The Federation has also called for the social relief of distress grant to be adjusted to at least 620 rand.
More important to me is, do you see the link between the ANC and the unions? Do you understand that the ANC and COSATU are an alliance? Anyway, this COSATU loony thinks that colonialism and apartheid are the reasons why we are where we are. He fails to realize that the salary that he thinks is so little is a salary that many people in our communities are desperate to get. He calls the police salary peanuts. Those peanuts that the police get? There is a black, colored, Indian and white person who wishes they could get half of that every month. You mock the salaries many people are paid, forgetting that companies have been closing down. How are you going to get salary increases if companies close down due to infrastructure collapse? How? Obviously, the salaries will seem like peanuts to you. But do you ever pause to think about the real reasons why so many companies are paying these peanuts? Now, this guy has something to say about Mkhwanazi's salary. Take a listen.
Yeah.
He would have had more credibility if he said himself, as a Lieutenant General of the Police Service, if I get his rank correctly, earns 12 times more than a constable in the police service, and he thinks a general should take a 50% salary cut. That would have credibility, but to pick up on the poor and dump the failures of politicians or the failures of the private sector, of the economy, etc., upon workers, it makes no sense at all.
Imagine that. General Mkhwanazi should have said he's willing to take a pay cut of 50%. Why? Because his salary is 12 times higher than that of a constable. This buffoon, who is clearly overpaid by COSATU, is trying to tell us that a constable, an entry-level position, should not be earning 12 times less than a provincial commissioner, a man who's in charge of an entire provincial police force, a man who is a lieutenant general, a man with decades of experience should be paid according to how much a constable is being paid. This is exactly the kind of thinking these idiotic communists have. They want CEOs to be paid according to how much a general laborer is paid. They want company owners to be paid according to how much cleaners are paid. And they have been instilling this foolish thinking in many employees.
About 3,000 members of NUMSA staged a demonstration outside their workplace at Ford SA in Silverton. They're demanding the company to share accumulated profits. They say Ford SA is generating billions of rand annually, but only management, executives and shareholders benefit from the dividends.
45.8 billion cut this first quarter. Last year, by real profit, we had 25 billion cut 2023. Cut 2022, fourth gross profit was $23 billion. Hey, this guy lose a makoma. Dollars. Hey, ki company ama America, ki adi dollars. Cut 2021, by real gross profit, Comrades chair ya $21.7 billion. I want to move the losses. There are no losses. This is profit.
NUMSA is the only labor union at Ford, South Africa. It has accused the company of refusing to meaningfully engage with the workers, blocking access to the plant in Silverton, backed by the police.
Shareholders should not receive dividends. Shareholders should not take millions in profits when a cleaner earns a few thousand per month. An investor took a gamble and invested into starting companies, but when that gamble pays off, he has to hear from lazy couch potatoes and union loudmouths about what to do with the proceeds of his investments. Yeah, ne? We need to retain honorable, skilled, and trustworthy police officers, just like company owners want to retain CEOs that make strategic decisions that make them money. Shareholders pay high salaries to high performers, to experienced and knowledgeable individuals in high-skill industries. Construction companies value bricklayers, electricians, carpenters, and plumbers more than they value general laborers. Construction companies value engineers and architects more than bricklayers and plumbers. And a CEO, a great CEO, is valued more than the accountants and the engineers. And the same applies to police officers. Why would we place equal or more value on the constable? He just arrived, but he will be valued the more skilled he becomes. He will be valued more the more experienced and trusted he is. The higher the position, the more valued the individual. But no, not according to Cosatu. According to Cosatu, we don't value Mkhwanazi's views because those views are starving us. Mkhwanazi should take a pay cut. What an idiot with access to a microphone. Anyway, that's it for today. Please share your thoughts on this in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Nhlanhla. This is Citizen Concerned. And until next time, beware of the comrades.